Morning, morning, morning. We are live on the air. Welcome to Beards on the Street. I'm Perry Dean.
This is Aaron Pearson.
It's Mr. A. Brand new studio. We've got a really fun guest here today, but really quick, we just wanted to wish everybody a happy new year. 2025 is here, and we can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah, 25 is going to be amazing.
Dude, it's going to be so good. So good. So without further ado, let me bring on my brother from another mother that I've known for
far too long.
Long time.
He's got a radio voice. Did you hear that?
He does have a radio voice.
Yeah, most people tell me I have a radio face. So,
so Mr. Matt Schultz. Little history. I actually met Matt in Farmington. He was at the time, and we're talking 30 plus years ago, and he was working at a Goodyear tire store, and I took my wife's car to get some new tires put on it, and it started all of this.
He hasn't been able to get rid of you since.
Well, maybe it's the other way around, which I totally think is what it is. He's tried to kick me to the curb.
That's what I'm saying. He can't get rid of you.
No, it's been a lot of fun. We've joked a lot over the years. There are times I remember we had a conversation one time, and I don't remember what the underlying circumstances were, but it was the quote was made: "You just can't bring Perry Dean on the nice carpet."
Right. I'm pretty sure that's after I told Jeff's mom she ate like a horse.
Something like that. I think so.
Oh my gosh. Well, buddy, I love you, man. I love our friendship. I'm even back in Davis County because of you.
Well, I'm happy to have you back. It's good to, relationships are what it's all about, right?
Yes, sir.
Time is pretty finite, and when you find people that you have the good energy with, that would be there. I tell my boys, you need those kind of friends. God forbid you ever have to actually do it, but you need that kind of friend that would help you bury a body, right?
Right.
And by that I just mean somebody with high integrity, some loyal people that look out for each other's best interests. So friendships are what it's all about. Time is pretty precious.
Yes, it is very precious, and I think the older I get, the more that smacks me right in the face. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's kind of funny that Matt, of our VIP 50 and our whole program there, and why we do our VIP 50, and it's basically tapping into our SOI and showing up with purpose and being a great friend. And you are definitely one of my VIP 50s for sure.
I appreciate that, buddy. That means a lot.
So, Matt, talk to us. Tell us about, I wanted to have you on the show today because, and don't pay attention to Finn, that poor dude. He doesn't get any attention at all, right?
Oh, my hell.
Yeah, poor thing.
Yeah, so Finn's in here, and he's going from one to the other and thumping on us because he wants to get up in our lap. Oh. Anyways, Matt, I know your story, but I want to hear it from you. You basically started Clean Spark back in the day. You started out doing a gasifier, correct?
Yeah, yep.
And then it moved into some kind of solar energy, and then it moved from there into Bitcoin mining. So tell our people a little bit about you and your travels to get to where you're at right now.
Well, the way you tell it, it sounds like I have ADD, but you know what? It really is kind of all a straight line. I was involved in traditional energy projects, oil and gas type stuff, and as you know, blessed with 6 kids, and kind of realized in the oil business that we provided a necessary resource, but a lot of the way that business operates isn't really the best stewardship for the planet. We don't necessarily make the right choices for, the clean air, clean water, stuff like that. And it was one of those kind of awakening moments that there's got to be a better way that I can do something meaningful. I mean, I drive a big diesel truck just like you, and I'm a user of fossil fuels. I just think the process, especially of smaller producers, isn't particularly clean. So started looking for opportunities in renewable energy. And, that was where the gas fire came in that you talked about. And we developed a technology that could convert anything that's carbon based. So whether it's construction debris or coal or wood or garbage, municipal waste, convert it to clean energy. And then, that kind of evolved where we were working with another company where we could integrate that technology to provide backup power for critical loads if the power were to go out. So we had our first really big project at Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton. So like mission critical stuff, navigation, guidance, communication for the entire Pacific Theater. It's all, kind of housed in San Diego, California. And if the San Diego grid goes out, then what keeps that navigation, guidance, communication live? And you got generators, but what happens if the generator runs out of fuel?
Right. So it's backup on top of backup on top of backup.
So we built a technology, really was what we had, and it was software that would integrate solar plus wind plus energy storage, geothermal, connected to the grid, allow the owner of that microgrid to sell power back to the grid when time made sense. They could buy it when it was cheap, store it, use that cheap power, and then push newly generated solar back to the grid to generate revenue. So it was a cool business, worked really well for mission critical applications, but we also found that it had a strong use case in avoiding costs of power, because you look at your power bill, it goes up during certain times of the day. Not that you use more, just that when there's more demand on the grid, they push the prices up. It's called peak demand. And so we developed a technology it was called peak shaving. So it would shave the peaks, kind of load balancing, and it would save big power users a lot of money. So we started to sell that to campuses and data centers.
So cool, man.
Yeah.
I told you he's one smart cookie.
Man.
Nah, pretend. I'm surrounded by smart guys. So
Yeah, whatever.
This is fun for me because I'm learning about this cool guy I've got to hang out with a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah,
Yeah, we get to hear. Keep going.
No, I'm happy to be here. So fast forward on a really epic long story. Middle of COVID, my colleague called me and he said, "Hey, there's a data center in Georgia. We're going to look at maybe selling them a microgrid because they have occasional power disruptions, and that when the power goes out, if you're a data center provider,
What a nightmare for them.
yeah, it's a problem. The bigger issue is if I owned a data center and you're my customer, and I agree that the machines that I host for you are going to be up, they're going to be operating a certain percentage of the time.
When they're off, they're not making money.
Right, but if they go off, they're not making you money. But if I'm your host and provider, even though I have no control over the power grid, we have an MSA, which basically is a contract that says you're going to have 90% of the value of those machines operating all the time. If the power goes out, then it's on me. So then I have financial liability for you as my customer in a data center. So energy is real important. And what we found out is that, there were opportunities that we could use this microgrid technology and kind of marry it onto data centers to bridge those gaps. And this data center just so happened that when it started out, it was an FAA data center. And it had converted. They had, like body camera footage for police departments. They had student records for Georgia Tech University, for example. This was in College Park, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta.
So to give the listeners an idea, how many computers were in this data center?
That at that time, I don't know. I don't know exactly how many it was, but what I do know is there were 7,000 computers in a back section of the building that they were using to.
So we're talking thousands and thousands of computers.
Yep, for sure. So it was 56,000 square feet data center. So it was a big data center. So they bring us in to kind of help provide an energy solution. And my partner Zach called me and he said, "Hey, I have a crazy idea. What if? Hear me out. What if instead of helping a data center with their energy and selling them a microgrid, what if we buy a data center and we use what we know about energy to mine Bitcoin? Because half of this data center is mining Bitcoin and it's tremendously profitable. And I've been studying and I think there's something to it." So, I was skeptical.
What do you think Bitcoin was at that particular time?
About $9,000 a coin.
Wow.
So So
What's it at today?
98,200 and something when I walked in here.
So $90,000 more, basically,
Yep.
per coin.
So it was an educational process. We found out that the biggest input in mining Bitcoin is energy, but it's not just about using energy, because energy consumption can be bad. We figured out a way, being energy guys, that we could use the energy consumption as a feature and not a flaw. So we work with little towns, and they actually partner with us. They make money. So that acquisition was in December of 2020. We mined our first Bitcoin 4 years ago. It was 4 years ago, 3 weeks ago. So, we haven't been in very long, and in that time we've grown pretty rapidly. I think, last count, we're the second largest publicly traded Bitcoin mining company in the world. So went from, myself and Zach and an idea with a gasifier to, I think we have about 350 employees now. We own 28 data centers around the country, the largest energy consumer in the entire state of Georgia. But we do so in partnership with the utility, allow them to build more nuclear and renewable energy. And we mine, 20 to 30 new Bitcoin every day, plus the Bitcoin we get for transaction fees.
So when you first took over that center, I'm curious, once you got up and running and cranking, it was already there. Is that what you were saying? Or did you create it or create more? And how many coins do you think you were mining then? Do you remember?
Yeah, so great question. There was a section of the data center that was mining Bitcoin. The rest of it was, like I mentioned before,
Right.
It had,
Data
health
storage.
Like there was health records, and it was secure, guard-gated section inside a data center, elevated floors, chilled air cooling, like a proper high-performance compute data center. And so what we really focused on is how much energy does it cost to mine a Bitcoin, and how efficient are the computers to do it, and can we partner with the grid and with the utilities in such a way that we incentivize them to deploy more renewable resources, more wind, more solar, more nuclear. And by doing so, we could, what they call sunset, or turn off coal-fired power plants years ahead of schedule. So not only are we allowing them to add more renewables, we're allowing them to shut off and mothball power plants that aren't necessary. Yeah, I mean, natural gas is a far better solution than coal.
Yeah.
So we, kind of worked through that process, and we developed a model that these little communities can make money working with us. So it's a win-win situation. We go into a little town. The way I told the story, I spoke at a conference in Dubai a month or so ago, and I kind of tell a story. It's about you have kids and grandkids, and so do you. So kids, but you remember the movie Cars? Okay, so there's that little town, Radiator Springs,
right?
And it was a bustling little metropolis, and then the interstate comes through, and the town gets forgotten. And you think about the industrial operations that used to exist in our country, manufacturing and mining and timber mills and all the different places. So when the power grids were laid out in some of these rural areas that we operate, Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Wyoming, there were users of that power that are no longer here. And so industry left, manufacturing left, and technology didn't ever arrive. So the grid was built so they had capacity to power all these industries that are no longer there. And so you've got these communities that are dying, kind of like Radiator Springs was.
Right.
So what we do is we come into those communities, we revitalize the electrical infrastructure, we build the substations, we turn it then back over to the utility. We build it, they own it, they operate it, and we buy the power. We buy it really cheap. They get a little bit of the power, like if we pay 4 cents per kilowatt hour, they get a quarter of a penny or a half a penny per kilowatt hour that we buy that stays in these little communities. It enables them to spend that money on community stuff. So think schools and parks and libraries and walking trails and splash pads and all that cool stuff. So I was we were with with the mayor of a little town called Sandersville, Georgia, probably 2 weeks ago, and he said he's been there 44 years, 80-year-old guy. Reminds me of our friend Larry McNeil.
Yep.
And he said in 44 years in public service, we've never operated below a deficiency. He said, we always have a deficiency at the end of every year. He said, since you guys started mining Bitcoin, the revenue that we make, that little quarter of a penny, has created an opportunity that we doubled our city budget from 16 million to 32 million a year.
Wow.
And we're operating in the black, and we have a budget surplus. So the people in the community, they benefit because these little towns are able to buy power, kind of like the Costco model, right? You buy 1,000 rolls of toilet paper, it costs you a lot less than if you buy 100, right? So by buying energy in bulk, they're able to save money on their power bill. But then another cool kind of benefit is that you pay sales tax on your power bill. You do everywhere.
Right.
But in the states that we operate, those sales tax are specific to the community. So the sales tax you pay on a $2 or $3 or $4 million a month power bill stays in that community. So it's created these massive surpluses. So now the residents.
So they're not only winning with that profit sharing, but they're winning with the taxes as well.
Yep, and the communities can't just sit on the taxes. They have to do something with it. But they've already revitalized schools and parks and trails and all this stuff. So now they're applying it to property taxes throughout the jurisdiction. So
everybody's just going down.
People are getting cheaper electrical power. We've overbuilt the infrastructure. When Hurricane Helene went through this little town called Washington, Georgia, it was organized in 1780. It was named after the president of the country at the time. The town hall has a historical plaque that the building still exists where they signed the documents that abolished the Confederacy at the end of the Civil War. So we're talking some major history in this little town.
Right.
So Hurricane Helene comes through, rips it up. The original substation in that town got destroyed. The one that we built to support our operations there was perfect, untouched. So we suffered zero storm damage, shut down our computers, push that power back so the lights go back on at the hospital, lights go back on at the school. And we're able, the cool thing about Bitcoin mining is that it's what they call an interruptible load. You can shut it off anytime, doesn't do any damage. So by working with these communities, we were able to save significant damage and exposure to potentially having the hospital without power, sit down for 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 days until their power grid comes back up, and then we gradually re-energize and back about our business. So it's you hear a lot on the news. Bitcoin's crazy magic internet money and it's bad for the environment and it does all this stuff. When in reality,
it doesn't sound like that.
It's really a valuable tool. Plus the Bitcoin itself. When I mentioned about that thing in Dubai when I was speaking, I was preparing some research and I read that 70% of all the Bitcoin transactions at or below $100. So 70% of all the Bitcoin that's used to buy or sell, 70% of the transactions below $100 either originate or terminate on the African continent. So what that means is people are actually using Bitcoin as currency. The government of El Salvador was so corrupt, their money was devalued so badly that they actually accepted Bitcoin as legal tender in El Salvador. So we're seeing this magic internet money that's got scarcity built in. It's non-sovereign. It's decentralized. So by non-sovereign, I mean no government controls it. It's decentralized. So if I want to send a wire to buy a piece of real estate, I got to go into the bank and explain to them what it's for, give them the property ID, then goes through the Federal Reserve, goes back to the receiving end.
Track.
Exactly, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's nobody's business because if it's my money that I'm spending, I already paid taxes on it. I already reported it. So
especially the government.
Yeah, exactly. But then the other case is people say, well, they see right there, it's proof that that's it. Now it's going to be used for illicit and nefarious activities, and drug running and guns and human trafficking. That's not true at all. When on October 7th a year ago, a terrible day when Israel was attacked, certain representatives and senators in the U.S. that don't like digital assets like Bitcoin. Elizabeth Warren, she came out and she said, "This is why we have a crypto army. We're gonna get rid of this horrible thing called Bitcoin because it was used to finance the attack of Israel." Well, another benefit of Bitcoin, aside from all of the things that I told you, is that it's a public ledger. So
it's trackable.
You can see where transactions go. It doesn't say it went from Matt to Aaron. It just says it went from this wallet to that wallet, and it's public. So what that means is they were able to observe a public wallet and prove absolutely without question, within minutes, that what she said was not true. And so we've created a narrative when in reality what it's about. President Obama spoke at the G8 last year, and he said, listen, we're uncomfortable with Bitcoin because it's like every American citizen is walking around with a Swiss bank account in their pocket. And he said, and the big problem for the government is, and I'm going to slow down for a dramatic effect, we can't see what they're doing with their money.
Right.
I'm thinking that's the use case for Bitcoin right there.
No kidding.
So it's none of anybody's business, but it's a great tool.
She sounds totally uneducated.
Yeah, well, she's very smart, but unfortunately, her motivations are not aligned with a lot of people.
Right. So just to picture what it is that you build, let's talk about one data center.
Okay.
And the number of computers in that data center. And if I might be right or wrong, but didn't you actually have a computer designed specifically for, or you purchased these computers specifically for Bitcoin?
Yeah. So the computers that we use they're called ASICs, and ASIC is it's an application specific integrated circuit. So it's a computer that only does one thing. And it only mines Bitcoin. And Bitcoin mining is nonsensical. Like, the process of Bitcoin mining is you're guessing basically a number. And you've got all these computers guessing at a number. And if you happen to guess the right number, that's when it becomes not nonsensical. And basically that gives you the opportunity to record that block. So there's one block every 10 minutes. But it's really important because that nonsensical exercise of guessing a number consumes a tremendous amount of power. And that consumption of power is what gives Bitcoin value, because you have to make an investment in order to make this guess. And so I'll give you an example. We operate just under 40 exahash of capacity. So 1 exahash is 1 quadrillion calculations per second. So and that's per second. So
wow.
So we have 40 exahash. So you think about 40 quadrillion guesses at a puzzle per second. And to put it in context,
Wow.
our facility is about 5% of the global Bitcoin, the total Bitcoin available, the total network hash rate. So that, just to give you an idea of scale and how big those are. So they generate heat, they consume a lot of power. So we build data centers using specific computers, but we build infrastructure because we're energy guys. We know how to use energy best. We can slow the computers down to consume less power
during peak times.
Yeah, if power prices are going up or if Bitcoin prices are down. But then we designed and built facilities. So we get computers at one of our facilities in a little town called Norcross. Computers show up in a box. You open the box, there's 7 fans on there. There's 4 fans that cool what's called the hash boards, the big CPU processing boards. And then there's 3 more fans that cool the power supply unit. And when they arrive at our Norcross facility, they go on a table, a static free table, and guys use a little electric screwdriver. They zip out all the screws, they take off every one of the fans, because we don't need them, because we then take the computer and we dunk it in a tub full of oil to cool them. So
they're in liquid.
They're in liquid. So you walk in.
What the crap?
It's crazy. So you got 16 computers in a tub full of oil. It's basically a kind of a mineral oil. It's non-toxic. It doesn't pose any environmental risk, but it just spills through these computers. So you hear like splashing
circulating
water all the time. And then
is it being cooled?
Yeah,
as it's circulating?
Beneath each of these tanks, there's a heat exchanger, and there's water that flows through the heat exchanger and goes out to a dry cooler outside, which is a big radiator. So you use it's closed loop. We don't consume water. So you've got water that cools the oil. So what really happens is the miners generate heat. The oil removes the heat from the miner, and it goes through a heat exchanger. The water removes the heat from the oil, goes outside, and the air removes the heat from the water. So it creates this cycle. It's really efficient. So we can then take these computers, make them work harder, because you're not going to overheat it by speeding it up.
Right.
Because it's in a bathtub.
It's not air
And it's a
cooled.
constant temperature all the time, and it's really quiet. You walk in there and it sounds like a spa. You just hear splashing fluid all day. It's just, it's kind of cool, but it's state of the art.
Is that where you go when you're having a?
That's definitely one of my favorite facilities. But and so that's purpose built in Georgia because Georgia's a hot, humid climate. Now, we also do immersion cooling in Wyoming. We just bought 4 data centers outside of Cheyenne. Different risk there. It's not a matter of trying to keep those things cool. It's about maintaining a consistent, constant temperature when it may be 14 degrees below zero with 9 feet of snow.
Yeah.
So we use immersion cooling for the inverse reason there, to kind of keep them at a constant warm temperature so they're happy and they work well. But, working with the utilities in Cheyenne, same story. You got extra power outside of F.E. Warren Air Force Base. They want to, Wyoming doesn't have the cleanest energy grid, but until the existing power on the grid is consumed, they can't build more. So think about that. What's the incentive to add renewable energy or more natural gas plants? Why not just keep using coal? And the simple answer is you consume it all. So you build value by increasing consumption. So they overbuild the capacity to produce power, and then when the less efficient coal or something, that a power plant that's not as efficient isn't making money, isn't making environmental sense, they can shut it off and add more value to a new nat gas facility or new solar or new wind or geothermal or nuclear. So Bitcoin has proven to be a pretty valuable tool. I knew nothing about it 10 years ago. It's kind of crazy. And
Now he flies all over the world and
Talks about
speaks
it,
at
teaches about it.
conferences. And I told you he was smart.
I pretend.
After every one of our dinners, hanging out on your couch, enjoying, we drive away. I'm like, so
What does he do?
like what?
You know what? We've had many conversations about just the process and everything, and every time I talk to you or hear you talking about it, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I learn something new every single time.
Yeah, I'm so just fortunate and blessed. Perry, you know my story, buddy. I mean,
Yeah.
I had 3 kids very young, and I had to drop out of college to keep my family rolling and rocking, and I went to work in the tire store, and so I never went back. I didn't finish, so I'm a college dropout, and now we have a company that we started, and it's certainly don't mean to take credit for it. I mean, it's a team effort, but we have, out of the nearly 400 employees, we've got a handful of guys with PhDs and a lot of really bright people.
Isn't one of them a colonel?
Yeah,
or a general or something?
Yeah, we do have some folks on our team, on our board, that have top secret or high security clearances that career in government stuff, probably not the most appropriate to talk a lot about publicly, but yeah, we've got a group of folks that mind-blowingly smart, and I think that's the secret. Like you're talking about your VIP 50, mine aren't sending me business, but I'm surrounded by a group of people that are just brilliant in their own field, and what I've been fortunate to do is assemble a team of folks that are the highest performing, highest functioning team in this particular industry. And that's not a statement of, I think this might be true. It's a fact.
Right. Well, one of as through our training that we do for the VIP 50, one of the big messages that we give to these agents out there is that you're going to attract whatever it is you're putting out. Who you are, what you stand for, what your why is, what motivates you, all of that is going to attract like-minded people to you. So, smart dude, and I love you a ton, dude, but man, it doesn't surprise me at all that you attract the kind of people you attract.
Well, it means a lot, buddy, and thanks for being my friend. It's been a crazy journey, and I'm excited to see what the next part brings.
Yeah,
and you
it's
never
gonna be
know,
cool.
right?
You never know. So, well, man, we'll have to have you back on and talk some more because I wish we had more time, but
It was fun when you spent that time with me and just talk to me, stone and chisel about what Bitcoin was.
right. Well, a lot of people don't know.
I mean,
They're just
I
and
didn't
all they
know.
hear is these these politicians and people with a pedestal yakking about how bad it is, and they just don't know. They're just not educated on it.
Well, you've seen pictures of Beijing, and you can see that you could probably eat the air there with a spoon. And so 3 years ago, the Chinese government outlawed Bitcoin. And they did it under the guise that Bitcoin mining is dirty, so we don't want to be part of mining Bitcoin. Well, then look outside. Why is your environment the way it is? So what we do know is that the Chinese ban on Bitcoin had nothing to do with energy, and it had everything to do with
Control.
Yep.
So the Chinese Communist Party is about control. Citizens can and can't do what the government says, and they monitor what people do and don't do. And if you have a decentralized, non-sovereign currency, now you're giving your citizens a way to spend money that you don't control.
Right.
And that creates fear. And so that's the same thing that's going on here in our country, is that there's a certain agenda from some folks that are anti-Bitcoin, and the new president is pro-Bitcoin. I got a call and an invitation to go back and sit down with him in June this last year and kind of help build their messaging, because they wanted to resonate more with young folks, and they felt like digital assets and technology was a way to do it. And what was real important to them was maintaining the value of Bitcoin and making sure that we don't push it out of the country like the current administration is trying to do. So, got to be part of building the campaign message. Got invited to go back for the election, to go to the party there, and be leaving here next week to head back for the inauguration. So it's been crazy cool to see the government not only allow it but embrace it.
Right. See, I roll with big people. My people hang out with the president.
You do.
Again, not shocked. This is my knock shot face. Well, Matt, you're such a good dude, and it's been my pleasure to have our friendship as long as you've had, and seen all your ups and downs, and man, I'm so freaking proud of you, dude. I think you're an amazing individual.
Well, right back at you, buddy, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to baptize the new studio.
Yeah, check this out. Yeah,
it's
kind of fun.
This is very
We're trying
cool.
to make it a little bit more, I don't know what.
Studio style?
Studio style. I mean, we're sitting instead of standing.
Yeah.
Just trying to make it, I guess, a little more comfortable. Mm-hmm. We've got some plants in here now.
Animals.
Well, Tim's always been there. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching.
Boys, I'm looking forward to the summer and bobbing on the water with you.
Yes, sir.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Can't come soon enough.
Yep.
No, sir.
Agreed.
Well, thank you guys very much. Again, Happy New Year. I hope that 2025 is just absolutely bonkers awesome for everybody out there. I know it's going to be for us.
Absolutely.
Have a fantastic weekend.